First up, I have Tristan, played by,
Will?
and Tristan is a.
Divination Kobold. Sorry, you did that differently this time, Alex.
Oh, okay. Uh, Next we have Melrath, played by,
Starmie827, and Melrath is a Dwarven Eldritch Knight.
and then we have Tazarath, played by,
Cerulean. And Tazarath is an evil paladin sorcerer hybrid guy.
and then we have Bob, played by,
Barska, and Bob is a tiefling warlock.
and last but not least, we have the twin characters Fixer Upper and Snake, played by.
Ryanaga. Snake is a Yuan-Ti sorcerer of the Draconic origin, and Fixer Upper is a half-orc war priest.
Marvelous. Okay, so when last we met, the party had finally found their way into Graven Hollow, and upon finding entry, the you were assigned rooms that magically filled themselves with all the things that you would need for your stay, and then you also became aware of the librarians of the past, present, and future, whom you have not yet met. You also encountered some echoes from the future or the past, perhaps, um, of a few individuals. But most notably, you met. Did you did you meet Viserion, or did I just start talking about him?
Is that the drow dude from several
Who?
centuries past?
There's a drow dude from the present, and he has a big gray.
Oh,
Um,
that guy.
Yeah, we met him.
yeah, and he told you guys to if you want to know how the demon lords came to be, look into Menzo Berenson. And then he went off with a whole armful of scrolls to try to do some additional research on his own. He wants you to meet back up with him when you discover what you discover, and share information. So, last time you had discovered that the Stone Speaker crystal is important, and we had left off right there. Um, so what do you want to do next?
Can we throw a rager and just get blackout drunk?
Well, as long as it doesn't get violent, I don't think that's against the rules. Although a library is not
We
generally where
want
one
to
has.
discuss which of the librarians, or which part of the past or future we want to look
Indeed.
I,
Well,
I
and the
think
other
we.
thing is, you might also care to think about specific um, characters or entities that you've come across that you might want to learn more about, for example.
If I remember correctly, we were mainly focusing on three things, but we could branch out into other. Um,
I'm interested in, what was his name, Demogorgon?
Mm, yes, Demogorgon. Um,
yes.
yeah, in fact, let me just check something. I think you guys had actually been headed for the archives of the past.
Mm-hmm. I think
So,
so.
so one of the first things that you can do while you're there is bring up the bring up the vision. Let me see something for a second here, if I remember correctly. While standing in the archive of the past, crystal in hand. Da, 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 da. Okay, so here's how it's going to go more or less. Um, with the Stone Speaker Crystal, it can give you one vision of the past, and then you need a long rest, one vision of the present, and then you need a long rest, and then one vision of the future, and you need a long rest. Um, so you can sort of get each of those three periods of time each day until you feel you've learned enough to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we might as well start with Demogorgon. So you set out intent on finding the archives of the past, and I'm trying to locate the archives. Here we are, archives. You managed to find a room, which is an archive of the past, and of course, because you have the ability to comprehend all languages by virtue of existing within the library, um, you see a sign above the door. It is in giant, and it says, "The past is a crystal, for it can be seen from many facets, yet always remains the same." And so once you go in, who is it that actually has the stone speaker crystal on them? Because somebody attuned to it, I believe.
Fixer Upper did.
Okay. Um, so the fixer-upper pulls out the crystal from its protective carrying cloth, and once inside the archive, you find that there is a slot in the floor that happens to perfectly fit it. You insert it, and then you speak the name Demogorgon. The group suddenly sees a Kuatoa swimming in the gloomy depths of a dark subterranean lake, uncertain. It turns left and then right, trying to find something, even as it's surrounded by fanged creatures resembling manta rays. The Kuatoa smiles, its needle teeth gleaming even in the darkness. It has seen something. It understands a new secret. Its already unhinged mind plunges further into madness. The Kuatoa curls in on itself, arms extended in worship. Then, from the circle of rays, two tentacles emerge, followed by two howling baboon heads, and then the vision abruptly ends.
So Demogorgon was born of just utter madness by dint of a Kuotoa.
That's how Demogorgon came into this world. Not exactly how he came to be, if that makes sense. Because he existed long prior to the events of the present.
Okay. Do we want to just continue with Demogorgon, or is there another idea that someone has?
So I'm confused. We saw a vision about Demogorgon in the past.
Yes, in the past, and yeah, you were playing for this. In the past, so earlier in the game, when you guys went to Sludeldop, you had found that there was an altar to Demogorgon. You guys lit it on fire. Demogorgon ended up erupting out of the lake.
Right.
So this Kuatoa discovering whatever it was that he discovered was the origin of Demogorgon coming into the Kuatoa settlement because they summoned him.
Mm-hmm.
Were those the fish people?
Yes, that
Okay.
like to make out with Drow.
And correct
Right.
me if I'm wrong, but
Forgot
when that
that.
happened, Will was not yet part of the party.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So
Smiling and nodding.
should we look at the future for Demogorgon? I don't. I mean, unless someone else has another idea, he
Let's
seemed
think.
like the primary evil, as it were, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe the biggest.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Can we do that?
if you guys need assistance, if you need ideas, you can also try to go find some of the librarians and sort of talk to them for a bit and see if that reveals some subjects that you might want to research.
Yeah, sure. Let's get ideas for present and future
Okay.
for the day.
So you set out. Hold on a second. There's a particular passage that says locating. Accessing record.
Is this section of the game kind of like playing Clue? Just asking.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I'm trying to give you guys space to come up with ideas in case you come up with something the book didn't, and if you come up with something clever, I'll reward you. But at the same time, I'm also not going to let you wander aimlessly, and I'll help move it along if you need it. So, anyways, right. You set out into the library, intent on finding the keeper of the present. Um, you wander down a hallway, um, and there's a sudden abrupt end to the hallway that you're in. So you turn left and you go right, and then all of a sudden, you come past a very large archway, and beyond it, there's a man, and he is hunched over a very large desk, and throughout his room there are a variety of subterranean beasts, moles, um, umber hulks, just creatures of every description, a lot of which you've actually seen sort of running about, popping out of holes in the wall, rushing over to him with scrolls or perhaps whispering something to him, and he's considering information and nodding and then writing it down as best he can. Um, and so once you enter the room, one of the um, one of the sort of spidery creatures that had crawled out and dropped off information for him sort of chitters at your entrance, and Ermus calmly turns around, um, and then he nods at the rest of the creatures, and all of them recede off out of the room. Um, Greetings, he says. Welcome to the library. I am Ermus, the keeper of the present. What can I do for you?
He sounds bored.
He's quite busy, it seems.
Well, it's not like he's short on time in a timeless space. So
What can he do for you?
What are we asking him about the vision we
Yes.
saw?
Well, he's not going to know about the vision. Um,
Okay.
we should ask him. Um, uh,
What
I'm
brought
sorry.
you to the library? Perhaps that would be the best place to start.
We're
Our
looking to
DM.
stop the Demon Lord incursion.
I'm sorry, what?
We're looking to stop the Demon Lord incursion.
Ermus had sort of been thumbing some scrolls while he was waiting for your response, and when Tristan mentions the demon lords, he suddenly sits bolt upright, and looks at you with intensity, although no hostility. Um, and what do you know about the demon lords, little one?
That at least 4 of them have popped into this world, maybe 5.
And which demon lords would those be?
The maybe is Jubilex. We're not sure if he made it past. Demogorgon. What's her name?
Zugtmoy.
That's Zygtamoy. Shoot, I thought we had met 2 more.
Well, technically, the one in the gem was someone you met.
Fraz Erblu, I think.
Fraz
the gem.
Erblu. Yep.
Raz Herblu didn't make it across, thank God.
Well, he sort of did with the gem, but you guys sent him back. And I'm not sure if there's anybody else that you know or remember. So that's still a good list. Um, he nods gravely. In fact, all of the news, and he says, holding up a variety of scrolls, and the funny thing about the scrolls is that most of the creatures that bring them to him are dramatically smaller than he is. I mean, he is a giant. So his hand is filled with, like, just little tiny scrolls. They look like, something that you would give to a model or something like that, little tiny creature. Um, and he has several magnifying glasses on his desk. Because all the news recently seems to be about some of the demon lords or another. I have heard of news about Zugtamoy and Demogorgon in specific. Fraz Erblu had slipped my notice. Where did you encounter him?
Back in Mantle Dareth, he had possessed a crystal. It was driving the inhabitants mad.
He listens intently, nodding. He also writes absent-mindedly with his hand without looking at the paper, um, and seems to scratch down some notes. He also asks some additional follow-up questions, which I won't make you summarize, but basically he sort of gets the whole story out of it in sequence and so on and so forth. Um, and then he goes on to say, Mantle Dareth is a place I have little information on. The gargoyles that inhabit that space tend to do a very good job of pest control, and that makes my job all the more difficult. Um, I wonder what Fraz Erblu's ultimate fate is. I mean, obviously he was returned, but um, to what, I wonder? Um, hmm.
Most likely the abyss, I would imagine.
Well, certainly, but where in the abyss and to what state? Did he reform immediately, or is he vapor, waiting to take form once more? It is so odd to find him trapped in a gem. I mean, this creature is nearly the equal of Demogorgon himself. Such a small, easily shattered object, I would not have thought would hold him.
Hmm.
I wonder
Well,
what his
that's a good thing to look into the past about, and something to good look into the present about.
indeed. Um, he. Oh! Hold on a second. Uh, Sorry, I'm trying to locate one specific thing. Nope. 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 Thunder Blaze. Is this them? Yes. Um. Uh. Have you perhaps stopped through the city of Gracklstugh before?
Indeed, we
It's
have.
been a, it's been a few months, but yes.
There is a lot of the most recent news has actually been of Gracklstugh itself. You may wish to do some additional research about the present state of affairs in that city. Um, I see, and he does a quick count, a good 20 accounts that I have yet to pour through with
Hmm.
information in them. Have you met my brother Ulthar, the Keeper of the Past, or Ustova, the Keeper of the Future, yet?
I don't believe we've talked to them directly yet.
Okay. You should make a point of speaking with them as soon as possible so that all three, I want to say all three of us, all of us are on the same page. I think that would be productive.
Works for me.
Okay. Who would you like to see next?
Let's talk to.
Past.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Uh,
I promise I'm paying attention.
no, it's fine. Hold on a second. Okay. All right.
Who was
So
the sorry to interrupt. Who was the death guy who we found an altar to? Was he
Oh,
a
Mircool.
demon lord?
oh,
Mircool?
I think you mean
Mircool.
Akachi.
Yes. No, it was Akachi's like god, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was to Miracle. And in fact, yes, that is something that you could look up. You could look in the present, the past, or the future. Could I make a suggestion? Um, Actually, you've done exactly what I was hoping you would do. Write down all of the little subjects that you want to talk about. So perfect. So that's another option. Um, 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 so as you set out through the hallways once more to find Uthar, the Keeper of the Past, um, you find a another one of those echoes appears. Um, Huh. Hold on a second. They forgot to include some very important information. Here. Okay, now I've got the information I need. Up in the hallway ahead of you, there is a human male. Seems to be dressed in a pointy hat, sort of reddish robes, although there's a blue tint to him due to the time displacement. Um, and when when you approach him, he turns and greetings. Um, it's a little hard to see you. It must be another one of these time displacements. It must be very great, he says, sort of squinting his eyes as if peering through a fog. May I ask your names?
Tristan Lonver. And yours?
Why, I'm Elminster. What brings you to the library?
We're just looking up information. What brings you to the library?
Oh, I'm searching for a long-forgotten spell.
Interesting. What does the spell do?
Well, I must say that I'm not entirely certain when you and I are in relation to one another. It might be prudent to perhaps obscure such information just in case it comes back to bite me. Perhaps if you could tell me a little bit about what's going on in your time, I might be able to figure out and locate my own in relation.
Um, y- you wouldn't be familiar with a demon lord incursion into the material plane, would you?
His eyes go wide. Oh, oh my, yes, in fact I would. That was a nasty bit of business. Why, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was the unintended result of a spell cast by Gomph Bainry. He was the former Archmage of Menzoberranzan, if I recall. I got it. There you go.
Ah, thank you.
Yes, yes, you do indeed seem to be quite a bit into my past. Um, Perhaps I should carry on unless you have any other questions. I have to be careful what I reveal. I don't want to change what happens after all.
Well, I'm assuming because you're alive and in this library, they don't take over the world.
No, no. Very eclectic group managed to take care of the problem, but and he sort of looks you all over as a whole. Um, but I don't want to say anything that, might change the outcome, as it were. And he squints a little bit and then smiles broadly.
Well, that works for me.
Oh, well, good luck. Hopefully you all make it. I'll be off. And then as he walks off into the distance, the echo sort of, dematerializes and he fades away. Um, you sort of walk to follow him for a moment, and as you turn around the corner, you find another hallway, another large open doorway that leads to Ulthar. He has an immeasurably vast catalog, and he has some sort of magical system that brings him, giant-sized um, cards like they used to have before the invention of computers. And he's always cross-referencing one thing or another. And as he does, he just holds out a hand and the card flies directly to him. And then when he releases it, it zips off back to its origin point to refile itself. Um, and as you all enter, he must have astoundingly good hearing because he turns and looks down at you. He has these very large earrings. Um, And in fact, they would probably be about the same size as Native American totem poles. And like Native American totem poles, they seem to have some graphics on them, some symbology written in giant that doesn't immediately get translated by the comprehend languages. So it must either be a concept or representative of some story or something. Um, but he looks down. He looks quite a bit older than Ermas. There are some wrinkles. No cracks, just wrinkles. But he smiles broadly. Greetings, adventurers. Irma sent word that you might be coming. He mentioned that you were looking for some help with a demonic incursion.
Yes, it's going to happen or has happened. This place is weird.
It most certainly is. I never know when I'm talking about either. Um, well, I think that perhaps. Hmm.
It was caused by someone named Gromf Bainray.
Ah, yes, Bainray, the House of Menzo Berenson that I believe in. He actually stops for a moment. He searches right on his dresser or not dresser, desk, and he finds a magnifying glass and he holds it up. And the ring for the magnifying glass is something that can be rotated. And he sort of holds it down so that he can see the party through it. And he rotates a little bit and he says, ah, yes. And then he gives an approximate date range that's pretty much within a year of your time frame. And he says, ah, yes, 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 yes. Yes, at that time, Bainry was the ruling house of Menzo Berenson, actually. He is the archmage of the entire city. He has the highest position of any male there, in fact. And if you know anything about Drow, that means that he is quite the force indeed if he managed to ascend to such a position. But I suppose it suits Miss Bainray. Hmm. I think. Let me see. What could I direct you to? And he flips through some cards. I think you might do well to perhaps look up, and then his eyebrows raise, and then he squints again. Do you know a pudding king?
We were not. We killed him.
Well, this is the halls of the past, so yes, that probably is him. I can't imagine too many others would go by such a bizarre moniker, he says, scratching his bald head. Um, yes,
There
yes,
might be one or two others.
I think that perhaps some information might be gleaned from that. Oh, here's another one. Here's another one. Hold on. Yes, 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 yes. Wow, this one was all the way at the end. He blows a little bit of dust off of it. Uh, there's some information to be garnered about a Zugtamoy. I think you might find information in the past related to them. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, yes, I see. Um, well, actually, you came at an interesting time. Um, there's two other records that just came to me. Um, Ermus and I actually do the most communication with one another. After all, he has to pass records from the present into the past when they age sufficiently. It's always a trick keeping up with that, but I believe Orcus. Orcus, do you know an Orcus?
I believe that's roll religion, right?
Yes.
That's an 11.
Mm. You. There we go. Tazaroth recognized the name but can't quite place it, and then um, the fixer-upper glares at him. Uh, why, that would be the Demon Lord of Undeath. However, although some of these records are being passed over, I think they'll still be present in the halls of the present. And there's one more. There's one more that's also located there, I believe. Um, yes, a Baphomet. Do you know him?
Let's see.
Tristan has sufficient information. Yeah. Oh, whoa.
As does
And then
Melrath for some
Melrath, the religion god.
Tristan starts to open his mouth, and then Melrath goes, "Why, that's the Horned Lord, the Horned King." Yes. That is indeed him. He'll also be located there. Um, hmm, hmm. I think. Oh, wait a minute. Let me roll for him. I have an idea. Okay. You know, I don't know how familiar you all are with demon lords themselves, but I've seen them pop in and out of the past periodically, and I recall that there's probably at least two names that aren't on my list. Irmus usually passes things that are, coming to him. So if I haven't heard of them, they're probably not related to the relevant past or present. So you might be able to locate something on Yinogu, and I'll type that for you because these
Oh,
names.
Jesus Christ, how many demon lords are out there?
Oh,
Um,
there are hundreds of demon lords. It's just how
But are,
many of those we're actually facing is the question.
yeah, which
because
could
not all of these that you're listing are loose.
well, first of all, I don't think we've talked about Yinogu yet this adventure.
Mm-mm.
I don't remember him, yeah. Or
Yeah.
her.
I think
Or
you
it.
might have mentioned Yinogu when we were fighting the Gnolls
Oh, and
right after Tazrath got introduced.
I'm actually gonna clear. Oh, fuck.
Uh-oh.
Fuck. Okay. I'm gonna
Let's
type
let's
some
do
of
that.
these in. I was trying to clear one specific thing because you wrote past for Yinogu, and that's future. That's what
Yeah.
I was trying to get across. So let me start typing some stuff. Yinogu, because I have all this stuff on the page in front of me. And okay. Um. Uh, uh, um. Uh, uh, oh, and that's and oh. Okay. Was there anything else? Jeez, I hope not. I feel so bad about having accidentally wiped that stupid thing. Okay. Well, I think that's all of them, unless you guys remember any.
Let's see. Pardon me. I think we also wanted to know what the heck happened to Frazer Blue in the present and where he is now. But
And
Oh. Yes, Zuctomoy, that's who I'm forgetting.
yes,
Uh,
and Demogorgon.
Well, you already did Demogorgon past, present, and I'm so sorry, Chris. You said something just before Zuctomoy. Something about the present.
You said
Frazer
Frazer
Blue in the
Frazer.
present. City of Menzoberranzan in the present.
Okay. Um, okay, so you have a bunch of topics there. Do you want to follow up with some of those or check in with the Keeper of the Future?
Future first.
Okay. Then let's roll some bones.
Last things first.
We also wanted to check in on us in the future.
Oh yeah.
Would
Oh
be
yeah,
fascinating.
type that into the chat for me. You thank Ermis for all of his help. You pass out of his hallway, and you start down another corridor at random. It doesn't seem to matter which ones you pick. You have no idea where you're going, but you always seem to find it regardless. Um, as you are passing through the hallways, you come around a corner, and suddenly you're met with the vision of several very large calves that seem to have been displaced in time. And you look all the way up, and you recognize a much younger version of Stone Speaker Hram, who you met at Gracklestug. He was the one who gave you the Stone Speaker crystal.
Indeed. Yeah.
Oh.
He hears the noise and he turns around, um, and then he sort of crouches down on his haunches. Why, hello there, little spirits. What manner of dreams are you?
Interesting that you should say that. You're familiar to us.
Why, you're my dreams. Of course I'd be familiar to you. I'm the one that birthed you. He smiles.
Uh,
Do you know where you are?
Why, I'm in Gravenhollow, of course. Do you?
And do you know what that means?
Well, all of the past, present, and future of giant kind is recorded here. What else would be
No,
important?
no, 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 no. Past, present, and future of all things is recorded.
Oh, no, 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 that's not quite true, my little dream. You're misinformed. No, only as it relates to the giant race, and only as it relates to the real world and not the world of dream, which I dare say that's where you're from.
no, we're echoes from the future.
Ah,
We met you in our past.
I see. I I think this is a most unusual dream indeed. Perhaps perhaps this might help solve some of this confusion between us. Are you familiar with a thing called a sun?
Yes, it's bright and is in the sky.
Ah, no, you see, the sun is endemic to the world of dreams. The above. It's all dreams.
Okay.
Yes, yes, all of giant kind has dreamed such things into existence, and I can see several configurations of dreams that we're familiar with.
Do you by any chance have something called the Stone Speaker Crystal yet?
Why? Why? Stone Speaker Crystal. He sort of scratches at his um at his bituminous beard. Um, no, no, those are handed out to the greatest of our seers. I have not even laid eyes upon one yet. Why do you ask?
No reason.
Hmm. Well,
I'm tempted to relay the prophecy he gave us, but I'm not sure if that would cause a paradox.
I mean, you can always try and see what happens. I've got other modules.
Oh Lord, I think I'll pass.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Well, well, little inquisitive dreams, unless there's anything else, I do have to go pick up this particular scroll for my master. I will remember you, he says, and recedes off into the distance. You can almost feel the tremors of his footsteps. Regardless, you pass down different passageway, and as you do so, it terminates with yet another one of these very large doorways. Um, and on the other side, you can see Ustova. Um, I don't know why they bothered to mention this. I think it's an interesting choice of language. Ustova is perhaps, shall we say, endowed for a giantess. Um, she has
Oh, really?
she has
Suddenly I'm interested.
large boulders, large boulders. Um, she. Oh, I see why this is relevant. So, uh, so
I'm waiting to hear this.
yeah, yeah. As you come in, you see Ustova in profile. Um, she's holding out quite far in front of her a large stone tablet, um, and it's held out so far in front of her because her large boulders prohibit them from getting much closer. She has a pair of very large glasses on that are quite thick, although relative thicknesses of glasses you're not certain, but she seems to be a bit blind, or perhaps she needs the magnification due to distance. But either way, as she holds it out in front of her. She holds it with her left hand, and her right hand um, sort of glides across the stone. And as it does, you can see a orange light inscribing giant script onto it. And Ustova's eyes behind the glasses flit with light blues and greens and yellows. Um, and she finishes writing out on her tablet and sets it down and sort of holds her head for a second. And as she's looking down at the floor, that's when she sees you. She stops for a moment and looks around and then rubs her eyes, shrugging her glasses up atop her big bald head. Um, are you here now? It's always. This library can be very confusing. Forgive me if that's rude.
Well, that depends on when you consider now to be. I mean, when will now be then?
She she smirks at you for a moment, mutters something about under her breath about hating time paradoxes. I suppose it doesn't matter. I just wanted to make sure I need not inscribe any of this on my tablets. Um, Perhaps we should start with what brings you here.
There has been, will be, a demon incursion into the world involving multiple demon lords, and we just wanted to know if there's anything you could relay to us from the future that might not change how we affect the future, but might help us in our quest to stop the world from being taken over.
Well, the good news is that there are some things I can tell you and others I can't, and it has nothing to do with paradoxes or silly natures, silly such things like that. But the issue is that the future, as far as I'm concerned, hasn't settled yet, and as far as you are concerned, hasn't settled yet. We actually share a relative time frame for once, she says, tapping her glasses. Yes, we're about the same time. Uh,
Hmm.
but you're not wrong. The irruption, Irruption, which I did not know was a word, um, of demon lords has sent some powerful ripples of indescribable chaos throughout my visions. In fact, things that should have nothing to do with them are being consumed with horrific, gory um, events. And then she sort of shifts some tablets around on her desk, and these, and she grabs them and she moves them over to stands that look an awful lot like musician stands, which are an ideal way to sort of display and read tablets. And she places a couple of them up on there, and you can see bloody spirals and twin fork symbols of Demogorgon. You can see images of the excessive growth and rot of Zugtamoy, and a sort of swirling, chaotic cloudy mess that reminds you both of Jubilex and that temple where you found what was his name? Glabagool? The sentient ooze?
Yes, I don't I think left him there.
Yeah, I think he actually managed to escape with you guys, but uh, do you happen to know anything about any of these particular symbologies or entities?
Well, that looks like Jubilex.
She asked him some clarifying follow-up questions about the nature of your interaction with the Pudding King and all of those events. And then she takes some notes and she says, "Ah, you see, for both Ermis and Ulthar, um, they work with a very specific set of knowledge, things that are generally known about, because of course they've already occurred. But I always have the hardest job because none of this has occurred. It's all new to me every time, every day, and it can make it difficult to interpret exactly what's going on. But I don't know if perhaps you're going to be able to do something about this whole event, I mean, all of them. But I certainly hope so, and it's quite important because it looks like possible futures are being cut off as we speak. Um, and all futures are converging into one, and I think you can imagine what that one future looks like. So if there's anything that I can do to assist, certainly let me know.
The main thing we're looking, well, as Tristan was saying, we're trying to figure out what sort of actions that we might take to try and solve this. What
Um,
sort of mm, what
hmm.
sort of knowledge would steer us on the right path? As it
Well, of course I recommend research. However, yes, here. She grabs something off the top of her desk. She takes the tablet, and this one she actually places down on the floor and sort of props it up against the table leg. And she points at a figure there, two figures, in fact. Do you recognize either of these gentlemen? And it, in fact, looks exactly like that Drow Archmage and the creature that's accompanying him.
Yes, we ran into them earlier.
Yes, I actually foresaw that visit. I can tell you that dangerous as this entity is, he has very important information and is in the midst of formulating a plan. And unfortunately, until he gets a little further along, I can't be certain which plan he's going to go with. But I sense that is he is absolutely going to be key to all of the events that unfold thereafter. So be sure to keep careful track of him.
Duly noted.
Regardless, if you have any visions of the future and perhaps difficulty discerning what they mean, bring them to me. I'm quite experienced with them.
Thank you very much.
And she nods. Oh, I can feel a vision coming on. Good luck, she says as her eyes cloud over.
Um, let's leave her to that.
Okay, so at the moment, you've used up your past for the time being, and since you have a number of different topics to research, I'm not going to be super restrictive in terms of like, you've used the past, now you must do something. No, just you have your topics, pick what you want to ask about, and we'll go through them. I'll just assume it takes as many days as it takes.
Let's take
Do
a
we
look
want
at.
to look at the guy who seemed to have caused all this? Or at
Oh
least
yeah,
Demogorgon?
Bainry.
Okay. You enter the halls of the past, and you insert the crystal as before and speak the name Gromph Bainry. An imperious drow archwizard in spider silk robes casts a mighty conjuration spell. As the ritual draws toward its conclusion, a web of Faerzress energy expands outward. The wizard seems very alarmed by this, and his efforts to complete the spell grow more and more crazed as he realizes he's lost control. And then sheer madness. Rifts open in the web of energy around him. These cracks stretch and widen, and through them come horrific fiends that scream and shriek and howl as they are wrenched from the abyss and cast into the Underdark. A woman's deep laugh echoes in your mind as the drow wizard shrinks away from the demonic horrors he has unwittingly unleashed. And then the vision very abruptly terminates.
Are we able to discern what kind of spell he was trying to cast?
Um, he is an archwizard, and that is still a good many levels beyond your current capabilities. So it's possible, but improbable. You can try rolling Arcana. You can also try rolling Perception to see if there's any other details you might be able to pick up.
Do we think that would be
I mean, there's no
wise?
harm in rolling.
True. Oh, my damn screen just went black.
Mm.
There you go.
Oh, wow. Some bad rolls for me. But it's okay. Bob is here.
I'm good at some things.
Okay. I think you guys have mostly finished the various rolls that you were going for.
Mhm.
So, based on what you came back with, the fixer-upper recognizes that this is definitely Gromf Bainry, and in fact, there's an insignia on his robe that you recognize as related to that house. So, in the future, if you ever happen to see that particular symbol again, I won't force you to roll. You'll just get the information. Um, as for the ritual, Bob, this is sort of your specialty. Not quite, because it's more demonic than it is the Outer Realms. Those are two very different places. But what you can tell is that the nature of this particular ritual, the scale of it, the complexity, all that's being all of the different components that you could see in this vision pulled together um, would indicate. Oh, excuse me. Would indicate that even though he's an archmage with a great grasp of magic, he's almost certainly had help. Something has given him additional knowledge to be able to carry out a spell like this. Um, and that's really about all you're able to tell. You are also able to tell that although it looks like the Faerzress was out of control, and that certainly seems to be the way that Gromf was acting, there's something about the way that all that magic interacted that tells you that was no accident, even if it wasn't the result that he was expecting.
Hmm.
Any other questions?
So do we think that's sabotage?
Hard to say.
Is Fair's Rest, isn't that fairy magic?
It is some sort of naturally occurring magic in the Underdark. It tends to accumulate in certain caves, and usually wherever it accumulates, cities are founded. So Gracklstugh, Menzoberran's, and the capital city of Drow. Um,
Okay, so it's not like tied to one particular race or
no.
people.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nobody's entirely certain what it is, but it prevents scrying, and it also prevents. It doesn't prevent, but it makes teleportation dangerous, like real dangerous, when otherwise it's actually fairly reliable.
Hmm.
What would you like to look up next?
Add that to the list.
Well, Droki's dead. Oh! I see. Okay, I'm with you. Um, I can do that one. That one's real quick. You pull up the crystal. You enter the passage of the present. While you're in these archives, you speak the name Droki. You come across. Um, it could be a gravestone. It's definitely a grave. Um, there are some letters that are scribed on it that don't spell Droki. Like, remember, you have that comprehend languages thing on. Somebody took a bunch of like Gnomish, or is it Gnomish? I forget. I think there might be crazy deep dwarves, dwarvish script, and they just sort of wrote it on there. And you presume that by virtue of being shown this, that this is Droki. Um, you can see that his foot is sort of sticking out of the gravel that's been tossed over him, um, and there's a rat that's sort of like digging around where perhaps his chest might be. He's very dead.
Was he ever brought back to size, or was he still tiny when he died?
Oh, he was brought back to size. That must have been very painful if he was in the glass jar too.
Oh, ow.
Well, that's a way that we can deal with old two-headed Demogorgon at some point. And just
Here, eat this
shrink him
mushroom.
repeatedly.
Oh, come on. We all know that's who the love potion is for.
You know, it could
It could happen. Demogorgon, you would never be brave enough to drink this potion.
Oh yeah, watch this.
What would you like to look up next?
Uh,
Anybody can type.
I'm kind of lost. This is all like a very odd portion of the campaign.
Oh, I know. That's why I'm trying to keep it moving. Bless you.
Fraz Herblu present.
Okay. You insert the crystal once more and call out, looking into Fraz Erblu's present. Hold on a second. Yes. See, there's no broken glass though, right? Okay. Understood. Let's talk about it later. Tupperware.
Hi,
Thank you.
Scott. Did he hear that?
He can't hear you, but he knows you can hear him.
That's funny.
Anyways,
Perfect.
yeah, back to the thing. Let me see here. I'm seeing there's some stuff here. We could try looking into our own present. Is gone. Dead post spell running out of control. Okay. Check on the present. We could look at that present. I'm gonna go with Fraz Erblu real quick, just because that's something that I can cover. And actually, you know what? I might as well just cover his past as well.
Is Fraz a male?
You're about to find out.
Mm.
So
Who can tell?
to,
with demons?
just to make sure that it's super clear about when things are occurring, Fraz Erblu's past. A rift formed by Faer's Rest opens wide, illuminating a dark tunnel. The rift spits out a black gem that clatters as it tumbles to the tunnel floor. The gem is picked up by a gray-skinned dwarf who inspects it closely. The vision shifts to a brightly lit cavern full of crude merchant stalls where the Derigar hands the gem to a deep gnome for appraisal. The gnome refuses to return the gem, instead giving it to one of her apprentices. The young apprentice skulks away with the gem in his clutches, but is ambushed by a gargoyle. The gargoyle snatches the gem, flies away, and then gives it to a female drow. The drow gazes into the black gemstone and sees a hideous demonic face looking back at her. Thoughts of murder and carnage fill her head as she hides the gemstone on her person, draws her short sword, and coats the blade with poison, prepared to insert it into
Giggity.
a beholder. As for the present, you hear a sharp crack and see sparks go everywhere, and there is a vortex that fills the vision. And when it finally settles, you see a black obsidian field that stretches off into the distance. It's cracked, it's exploded in chunks, and there is a large. Hold on a second. There's a picture. I want to make sure. I think there's a picture. F. Yes. If I go to. Shit, where are the pictures? Is it library? No. Tokens? No. Artwork. Where the fuck is. Here it is. Images and maps. That's what I'm looking for. And then Out of the Abyss artwork? No. Out of the Abyss other? Maybe it's. I found it! And then this massive creature rises from the obsidian fields. He gazes around, and several demons immediately take off running into the distance. He smiles and sort of flexes his fist, and seems to be once more back in his body. And then the entire hulking 12-foot tall creature warps and wobbles and shapes, and then suddenly transforms down to a wickedly grinning drow female. And she turns and she looks directly at you, and she snaps her fingers and the vision ends.
Goody.
Who are we looking for next? Gromf?
Yeah, is
Grumph present.
You try to search on Gromf's present, and nothing comes up. He must be in a place obscured from scrying.
Hmm.
okay. Orcus present.
Okay. In the heart of an alien cavern glistening with slime, scores of mind flayers gather around an enormous brain resting in a pool. The brain is dead. You can hear the Illithid's incomprehensible thoughts as they mourn its passing, and one word echoes louder than the others. Cyrog. Suddenly Fair's Rest bathes the dark and twisted hall in a purplish light. A rift opens, and a hulking horned figure that reeks of putrescence steps out. It raises a skull-tipped wand and points it at the dead Elderbrain. The Elderbrain begins to postulate, and you see intermittent flashes of purple light under its rotting flesh. The Mind Flayers are aghast as the Elderbrain speaks once more to them, telling them that Orcus has saved Cyrog and commanding them to follow it into undeath.
That's not good.
No.
Mind
Jublex
flayers
past and present.
Okay.
Yeah, undead mind flayers is not good.
Yeah.
Ye-
we have to do Yenigu and Loth too.
Sure.
Those
So
later.
we'll go to Jublex next. Jublex's current present seems to be fixated around. I'm sorry, I have to look up a name. Give me a second.
Oh yeah.
What is the name of this place? You can see a massive tunnel system known as Aramikos. Jubilex's vision is perhaps the most confusing one that you've seen so far. You can see fluids floating in all different directions, expanding out and questing along the cave. It'll roll over some kind of organic matter, and then all of a sudden, it'll just slurp that up and then move on. It's really hard to make out exactly what's going on, but I mean, even when the vision started, Jubilex was a mass of roiling formless nonsense. And then the vision ends. And well, since we talked about Jubilex, his past, a deep gnome, spurned by others of his kind, weeps as he wanders the dark tunnels, talking to the things that crawl and seep from the walls. You see him adopt two slick patches of ooze, sensing his innate power over them. He plays with them as if they were children, chasing them through the gloomy depths. Something changes, and the oozes flow away. The deep gnome runs after them, fearful of being alone once again. You feel a great hunger seize him. He experiences visions that pass into your vision, showing what appears as a paradise to him, but an oozing nightmare for all others. The great hunger speaks to him, his already broken mind a shield against the hunger's shattering power. The power seems to recognize and acknowledge something in the gnome that will serve it well. The great hunger has a name, Jubilex, and its power, oh, such great and terrible power. It grants the gnome the ability to command the little hungers, his children, so that they can return to the place that cast them out and devour it all. And let me see.
I don't think any of these are going to be happy visions, are they?
No, generally not.
Well,
Um,
hopefully us in the future.
oh,
I'm
wait,
not sure I was ready
wait,
for
wait,
this.
wait. I found it. I found it. Yenogu. This is a happy one. This is a party. A hunched and rotting creature with the head of a fiendish hyena swings a triple-headed flail at a beholder, crushing it. See, that's happy. As the eye tyrant falls to the floor, a pack of hyenas leap onto the corpse and tear off its eye stalks, while the demon lord licks the gore off of its weapon. As the hyenas feed, they transform into slavering, cackling gnolls before your eyes.
Okay,
Uh,
that's
then we have Loth. You are suddenly viewing the demon web pits, a particular layer of the abyss that Loth is known to inhabit. You behold the true form of the demon queen of spiders, that of a black, bloated arachnid with the head of a female drow. Nestled in the webs all around her are thousands upon thousands of gray eggs. Loth knows that she is being scryed, her fury tangible as her mind reaches out to find you. Her shriek of rage as she's shut out by the powerful wards of Graven Hollow echoes in your mind as the vision is suddenly torn away to darkness. And in fact, roll a perception check for me.
hata. Oh, that's good.
That's real good. And a 20. Woof. You guys are on top of this shit. Yeah, that's more than good enough. That shriek and her voice, it's something you've actually heard before. It sounds similar to the woman's deep laugh that echoed in your mind when you looked upon Gromph.
Okay.
Okay. So most likely Lolth messed with Gromf.
And nobody
Maybe.
could say their names.
So there's only a few things left, so I'm just going to spin into those because I know they're topics. We're looking at the present of Gracklestug. You see a circle of small hooded figures, their forms hunched and emaciated. Their gestures and movements are jerky, indicative of the madness possessing them. They are chanting, swaying to their own words, and then they stop as the glow of Fair's Rest rises around them, whispering to them in unintelligible sounds. The Darrow cackle and dance, their hands glowing with a power that isn't theirs. The vision shifts, and suddenly gray dwarfs stare down at the red-hot metal on their anvils. The constant rhythm of their hammering falters. Suddenly, brother turns against brother as minds turn inward upon themselves. Sparks fly, and a city begins to burn.
So, does anybody else think that we've been hearing Bears Rest a lot?
Yes.
How much do we know about it? Like, is it common or am I just paranoid?
Um,
Or
it is.
both?
It is actually a common feature of the Underdark. It's been here for at least the past 1,000 years. There's
Right,
records.
but I mean, this campaign, like, it seems like it could be involved in this whole thing.
Oh yeah, it's definitely involved. Mhm.
So I'm
You
not
mentioned
crazy.
the past affairs rest.
I mean, you could always be driven crazy by the demon lords, Kyle.
I mean, that's, yeah. If by
Can we
demon
look at
lords you
what
mean my
brought Fair's
coworkers.
Rest into the Underdark?
Maybe. Let me look up something real quick.
Let's see which one. Which
Would
one's
that be past?
It would be past, definitely. But the question is, do I have that information? I'm looking for. Here we go.
I'm starting to get conspiracy theorist thoughts.
Okay, I have the information I need. You put the crystal in and ask for information about Fair's Rest. The vision that you see before you is wobbly. It isn't as clear as a great many other visions that you've had so far. You can see a time where there was a massive elvish city. It took up an entire forest. Every single tree was a part of this city. Um, there is a disagreement between two noble houses, and then the disagreement expands and grows further and further, and it encompasses the entire city. Trees burn, elves attack one another, and in the end, several of the elves are driven away from the city. The elves that are driving them away pursue them long and hard, hoping to take down every last one of them, and their numbers dwindle. And when everything seems lost, they find a cave and they go as far back into that cave as they can, hoping just to stay out of sight. But the cave doesn't end, it keeps going and going. And as they escape, their panic, their their desperation affects the weave, the nature of magic around them, and they begin to give off the energy that you recognize now as Fair's Rest. Now it has nowhere to go because there's a ceiling to this world that they find themselves in, and it begins to accumulate in some of the places that cover their earliest settlements. And interestingly enough, it protects them from their enemies. They cannot be found, they cannot be teleported to.
Is that the origin of dark elves, the drow? Is that it?
Yeah.
Huh. Oy.
Let's see. So Chris very helpfully added in some other stuff here. I'm just going to go down the list. Akachi. Um, hmm. So Akachi, we're going to go into his past. In his past, um, the vision shifts over and over and over again. It shows victory after victory after victory of Akachi, and all around him are hundreds and hundreds of bodies. Some of them raise up as the undead, but it's not like he's truly created an army, just enough to continue the wave of death that spreads out. And then the vision very suddenly jerks to the right, and when it abruptly stops, this part is crystal clear. You can actually see Merkel, the god of death, speaking down to Akachi from the heavens. Um, and they're having a conversation. Um, Akachi is giving him a progress report. Um, and Merkel listens intently. And then he mentions a particular group of adventurers. Something of Thay, the Wizards of Thay. And when he mentions them, Akachi gives a horrific skeletal grimace and hisses. And Akachi says, "Mighty Merkel, how can these mortals vex you so much?" And Merkel says, I am a representation of death, a force of the universe. But, whether intentionally or not, I only exist as a concept, as an entity, as I am now, because of the way mortals view me. And if these adventurers, the Wizards of Thay, the Lords of the North, if they are allowed to continue as things are at present, I will no longer be me. And if I want to prevent myself from changing, I must start with the mortals that would most have the power to influence who and what I become. And so I bid you slay them all. And then the vision abruptly ends. And then, shifting over to his present, you can see Akachi now. He looks far more whole. He is far more together. And he has assembled even more undead creatures, and they are at present roaming the Underdark looking for you. Akachi keeps muttering, "The adventurers, they've changed him. The adventurers, they've changed him. I must destroy them. I must destroy them before they figure it out, before they figure out my weak point." And then he raises his head as if he hears something and tells his army, "Slay whatever it is." And a battle erupts between them and a beholder.
Is it the beholder that we recognize?
It is not a beholder that you recognize. However, the beholder seems to be doing pretty well, and then the vision ends.
Interesting.
Demogorgon present. Demogorgon present.
Can we scry
Hmm?
a 2 for good measure?
Who?
Akachi's future?
Akachi's future is not written yet. There's too much
Ah.
uncertainty to see his future.
Okay.
I need a moment. Is it there? No. I think you wanted to look at Demogorgon's present. Demogorgon
There's-
at... Hmm?
There's that. There's Zugtmoy, Pat, Menzo Baranzan in the present, the city.
Right,
Uh,
right.
Us in the future, and just for giggles, us in the present to see what effect happens.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, you in the present just shows you the room that you're currently in, asking the question, looking at yourself, looking at yourself, looking at yourself. So that doesn't really amount to anything.
That was
I
still
know.
worth it.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, if you say so. Um, as for Menzo Berenson, looking at it in the present, sorry, I'm trying to find a very specific little thing here that I need. Here we go. You are shown. Wait, what? You are shown an object. It doesn't become clear for a few seconds, but then suddenly it materializes into a grimoire, and it 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 says something about, it has very flowery language, the darkest summoning arts of demons, past and present, and authored by Gromth Bainray. And then you also see a talisman, and the vision focuses very highly on the talisman itself. It's not one that you've seen before. It is showing for a brief time, and then whoever owns it, their hand, a dark hand, grabs it and then stuffs it underneath their robes, and then the vision ends. Zugtamoy. Where is she? Ah, Her past, a peculiar cavern, opens up before you with lights of every color shining from the pure essence of life, diffused and amplified by the glow of Phaerzrus. The glow pulses, and you can feel the life in the cavern rotting away, bursting with infection. A mushroom grows in the center of the cave, even larger and taller, pustules forming and seeping as the stem thickens and its cap reaches to the cavern ceiling, forming a vast fungal tower. Two myconids approach the site in awe, not minding the carpet of rot under their feet. You sense their minds come alive in wonder as they kneel in worship, and you know that they are doomed. A voice sounds out within the clouds of spores that fall like snow, the voice that tells the myconid to prepare for a gift unlike any they have ever known. And then, in the present, you sense that Zugtamoy is approaching Dark Lake. And as she comes to it, she has a procession behind her of a great many of those bridesmaids and what were the other ones? The big fat ones. Um, Bishops, we'll call them, because I can't remember their name. And they're all marching behind her. They have this horrific caravan. Um, and any creature that's come near them has turned to rot or become one of her mindless fungal servants. When she sees the dark lake, she considers it for a great time, and her bridesmaids sort of tend to her dress and so on and so forth. And she says, "Ah, well, it cannot be avoided. We must get to Aramaico so that we may wed. Around the dark lake we go." And they set off. Let's see. So I covered past and present there. Menzo Barons and present I already gave you. Demogorgon present I think I gave you?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Ah, Demogorgon at this moment is settled down within a particularly large cavern. Around him, there is a group of gray dwarves and drow that have been slaughtered. They seem to have been war parties. They seem to have been well outfitted. And he is sitting there contemplating and munching on the various bodies as he does so. They're kind of like chicken nuggets for him. And so, as he sits there contemplating, he uses his large tentacles to inscribe things upon the wall, and he seems to be gaining a grasp of the world around him in terms of the exact layout, the map of the Underdark, and he has made clear notes that show the present locations of several demon lords. And you note that Yinogu is not dreadfully far off from your present location. You note that Zugtamoy is about where you thought, close to the Dark Lake. Demogorgon himself is southeast of Menzo Berenson by a good distance, and he seems to be contemplating and drawing up potential battle plans, who he'll engage, where he'll engage them, potential plans on how he'll engage them. It looks like he's coming up with a complete invasion plan for the entirety of the Underdark, but he has to take out very specific locations so that from that chaos he can summon more of his servants. And
Are there
then,
any of the demon lords that we've identified that aren't on his wall? Like any of them that have not been summoned into the world at this point, and maybe we can potentially stop their summon.
Or any that are on the wall that we weren't aware of.
in fact, hold on a second. There's one thing. I think it's here. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking for one more thing. Okay. There is an area that has been circled. Um, Fortunately, due to the comprehension of languages, the demonic script is something that you can understand. And the area that's been circled, like most of these, he has exact pinpoints for where these creatures are in relation to him, as well as a perfect map of the Underdark. But for one of them, something called, I'm just going to type it because I know that the spelling for this is going to be kind of wacky. Grast is unknown. He has some question marks around that location. Um, Incidentally, that's pretty close to where you guys are, or at least so you think. Graven Hollow is a secret, um, and you needed a guide to get here, but that's about where you were when you found it.
Sounds like we should go there.
Well, let's check Graz's present. Maybe he's within the boundaries.
Okay, let's see here. Instead of a vision, an echo appears before you. Um, the echo is of a humanoid male. Um, Seems to be about medium height. Um, he's incredibly attractive, absolutely ripped. He's wearing a demonic loincloth, um, and he has very sharp features. But no matter your orientation, you can understand how someone would be attracted to that particular guy. Um, he turns and looks at you, kind of confused. Uh, I've never had an echo come so sharply into focus. Who might you be?
I'm Tristan. What's your name?
Why, I'm Grast. What part of the Underdark do you come from, little
Um, uh,
one? Do you need help?
Gracklestug?
Ah, Gracklstug. I see, I see. Um, and you're quite different, he says, pointing to Melrath. From whence do you come?
Oh, I'm from the surface.
His eyes widen, and he suppresses a grin. Oh, the surface, you say? Why, how did you ever find your way down here?
Oh, obviously there was a hole in the ground, so
Yes, this hole you mentioned. Where was it?
I don't feel comfortable disclosing that location.
Um, Eric, roll a wisdom saving throw.
Wisdom saving throw?
Mhm.
Ah,
Classic.
Even through the echo, Grast's power reaches out towards your mind, and you can feel yourself resisting his pull, his natural charisma, shall we say. You have just prevented a particular madness from coming into your mind. Mine is the path of redemption, and anyone who says otherwise is intentionally misleading you. Um,
Are you in
as
the library?
Oh, I was just about to get to that. As Grass reaches out with this particular attempted influence, suddenly the entire room that you're standing in shudders. Um, and Grass looks both confused that you are not under his sway and alarmed by the sudden shudder that seems to be simultaneous for him as well. And then his echo is very suddenly split in half and vanishes.
So he's not a place.
No, he was in the library, and remember the rules of the library. You don't
What are
do
those?
something. You don't try and fuck up someone else, which he just tried to do and failed.
Oh,
So we should ask the librarians about that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. The librarians, and actually, now that we've gone through all of those things as well, it might also be time to tell Viserion what you've
Actually,
learned.
no, we're not. I had one more thing I wanted to look up.
Oh, go ahead.
Viserion past, Viserion present, Viserion future.
Oh,
I still want to look up us in the future too.
Oh yeah.
oh, I can tell you that one real quick. So when
Well,
you
that's
look
not
up
good.
when you look up yourselves in the future, um, there's a lot of blood. There's a whole lot of blood. Sometimes you see like Tristan's forearm. Sometimes you see Melrath's hip bone. There are other times where the fixer-upper has been splattered across the side of a boulder. There's a lot of instances where your various internal organs and genitals have been shifted into various demonic symbology. There's some hints of you slashing at various hordes
You
of
can stop
things.
now.
It's a huge mess. It's entirely, completely chaotic at all times.
Jesus
It
Christ.
seems like the future hasn't quite settled in yet.
Let's hope so.
We were not afraid to die in all the worst, terrible ways.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the other thing that you wanted? It was something Will had just said.
I want to look into who
Viserion.
the fuck Viserion is and what he's doing.
Okay. Um, sure. So let's start with his past. It starts to show sort of a montage, a training montage of him sort of growing up within Menzoberranzan, and it quickly becomes apparent that he is one of the greatest magical talents that has ever been produced by the Drow city of Menzoberranzan. And as the montage starts to slow, it becomes apparent that his house, Devere, is up against Bainray for control over Menzoberranzan. And it shows some additional information about Gromph, in fact. Um, he Gromph, a scion of the first house, is as gifted a schemer as he is a mage, and he has engineered a scheme to cast Viserion into disgrace and exile him from the city as an unbeliever in Loth, which is punishable by exile or death, and it looks like he managed to rig it for exile. Um, as soon as as Viserion Devere flees the city, for he's nearly killed in the process, despite being as powerful a mage as he is, um, the entire city turns on the House of Devere, and it is wiped out by its rival, House Do'Urden. Viserion um, runs through the Underdark, and he's ambushed by Behirs, by Umberhulks, and in rapid succession, I might add. His spells begin to dwindle, and when it looks most dire, when it looks like he might just pass, he has a flash of inspiration, and he creates a brand new spell never before seen. And he casts it and presses his hand up against a wall of stone, and he slides into it. And on the other side, he finds a completely enclosed cavern with a massive stalagmite. I think it's the one, the bottom upward, that one.
Stalagmite has a G in it, so it's on the ground. Stalactite has a C in it and is on the sea. That's how I
Yes.
remember it.
The thing that really fucks me up is I read a Dilbert from ages ago where Dilbert said stalagmites might hang from the ceiling, but they don't. And that's unfortunately how I remember it, but every once in a while I get confused because it's such a weird way to put it. Anyways,
Fucking Dilbert.
yeah, I know, right? Screw you, Scott Adams. Right, where was I?
Through his path, and he had just
Oh,
entered.
I see. So Viserion at this point begins to set out crafting himself a mage's tower in his safe haven. Um, he seems to be harboring a thirst for vengeance against Grump, and he just plots over and over and over again. And as time goes on, you can also see in some of his writings that he has grown to despise Loth as well. He believes that she has overridden um, Drow society with some truly dangerous ideals that will ultimately prevent the Drow from ever achieving greatness. Um, na, 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 na. Let me see. You also see, for a brief moment, Viserion is holding something, some object, and in so holding it, that gray-skinned creature that follows him around seems to obey him and follow his bidding. You also see that Viserion's tower is incredibly well protected. He has so many layers of different alarms, of magical traps, of servants hidden within the location. As for his present, you see him in a room surrounded by countless scrolls that he has somehow organized. And every once in a while, he will snap his fingers and name some particular um, thing in giant, uh, and then his servant will come and bring him a scroll or a collection of scrolls. And there you go.
And what about his present?
That is his present. The collection of
Ah.
scrolls. Anything else?
We could do Graz's present again to see where he wound up.
Well, he might come looking for you.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know about that. I
that's
mean, what happened if the wisdom save was, bad?
That wisdom save was not going to be bad. I've got 2 instances of making sure of that. So let's
All
do
right, then let's do it.
Um,
I
hold on a
forgot you had
second.
high rolls.
I
Okay.
just have to check. What are the other modules that I have available? Oh yes. Okay. So attempting to bring up Grast's present echo once more simply brings up a replay of the previous events. It also replays it, showing you watching the original vision.
that
Huh.
wasn't helpful.
No.
What about his past?
Grast? Let me see. D. Here we go. Okay. Interesting. So looking into Grast's past, you catch a sign of a particularly brutal yet attractive warrior fall to the earth dead. And then suddenly he awakes within the abyss, um, and several demons immediately set upon him, attempting to tear him apart. From nowhere, a wavy bladed sword appears in his hands and he cleaves them in half. And as he does so, he feasts upon their remains and takes on an even more demonic appearance. And over time, um, he grows larger and larger until he's about 9 feet tall at this point. Um, he finds a particular region within the abyss that he is fond of. He calls it the Argent Palace. The name seems to have some significance to him. And as he settles in and further cements his control over that area, you can see a zoom out from that location. Flat surfaces within about a mile of the city that are made of stone or metal become highly polished and reflective, as though they've been polished to a shine, and they are supernaturally mirror-like. Um, oh, okay. Wild beasts of the abyss within 6 miles of the city suddenly break into frequent conflicts and coupling, uh, mirroring behavior that occurs during their mating seasons. And da, 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 da,
Can we roll history on what was it, Argent Palace?
sure. Oh wow, Melrath. Oh no, wait, that was your wisdom save.
Tristan should be fine though, I would think.
Yeah, Tristan can pretty much cover this. The Argent Palace is a grandiose structure in the city of Zelatar, found within the abyssal domain of Azatar. Um, it is the seat of Grast power, his lair. Um, and apparently, yeah, his den is his lair is a den of ostentation and hedonism. It is adorned with finery and decorations so decadent that even the wealthiest of mortals would blush at the excess. Um, and anyone within Grast's lairs, followers, thralls, subjects, and if someone should happen to wander in there, them too, they're all forced to slake his thirst for pageantry and pleasure on command. And if you don't do as he says, he literally casts the command spell upon you with a pretty powerful save.
We should avoid talking to him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go talk to to the librarians, and then we can go talk to Mr. Elfie Poo.
Okay. Do you have a particular librarian that you want to see first, or you're just going to talk to all of them in turn?
Present one to ask what happened to Gratz.
Okay. The librarian. So you walk over, down a particular hallway. You just pick one, start going, and magically, as always, you manage to find Irmis. Um, Irmis is actually with Ulthar. Irmis has a cart that has a great many scrolls upon it, and he's talking about organization and particular things and where they need to go and what they relate to. And he's actually quite excited. Things seem to be going in the right direction for giant kind. And they both look up as you enter. Why, hello, little creatures. What can we do for you?
So there was someone in the library who got kicked out of the library relatively recently. He's one of the demon lords, and we kind of wanted to know what happened to him.
Ah, yes, the Galabdur were all a tizzy about that. Um, I think it happened only an hour ago, he says, and looks at Irma says as he looks to Ulthar. Um, Ulthar smirks and he says, "I don't know. Sounds too frequent for me to have heard anything about it." Um, and then Irmis grins back. Yes, I believe that. Um, well, this is quite awkward, and promise you won't mention it to him. But Velda's car was trying to mount one of the Galabdurs it was removing um, Grast from the grounds. Fortunately, the library responded in kind and summoned up an army sufficient to remove the creature. Um, and he is currently stalking around the perimeter trying to find a weak point in the library to return. He seems most intent on meeting you.
Great.
I suppose that's going to have to happen sooner or later.
Well, perhaps not. You have made a friend, haven't you?
An extremely powerful wizard who possibly knows teleport. Yes.
Perhaps he can help you. You might do well to stay on his good side considering the current state of affairs.
Let's go talk to him.
Okay.
If you all agree.
I actually had one question relating back to the Demogorgon present vision.
Sure.
I was wondering if there was any clue as to. You mentioned him trying to. Well, he was keeping track of everyone. He was trying to prepare an army of sorts, I guess. But it wasn't clear to me whether or not he is competing with the other demons or he wants to command all of them. Or
Ah,
was
I
there
see.
anything?
Yeah, so here's how this works, or how it worked prior to the entering your world on the Abyss, because you guys have rolled plenty of good history and religion checks. On the Abyss, each layer of the Abyss, and it obviously goes down kind of infinitely because it's an abyss. Um, each layer of the Abyss is commanded by a demon lord or demon lords. And generally speaking, to command such a layer, you have to be a very powerful entity indeed. But the demon lords are always in combat and conflict with one another,
Mhm.
trying to grab an upper hand or control an extra layer. But for some reason, even though Demogorgon, for example, is known to be one of the most powerful of the demon lords, um, they never quite seem to have the upper hand over each other. They always seem evenly matched in their when one demon comes into the lair of another. Um, so they're always warring and sparring, and without the advantage of that lair, it seems that Demogorgon perhaps is more intent on slaughtering them here and taking the prize for himself. That's the gist that you get from it.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'm glad we probably won't have to fight all of them then. That's good.
And maybe that has something to do with a potential solution.
Maybe it does.
So as you are wandering the library looking for Viserion, um, hmm, ah, you see a particular vision. Um, it alarms you at first, um, but there is an echo of a mind flayer, and it seems to be looking directly at you with great interest. You're not super familiar with mind flayers, but this doesn't look like the one that you knew from the Society of Brilliance.
Now, who might you be?
He considers you for a moment. He makes a very big show of looking you up and down, sizing you up. Zetzerbor. And when might you be?
Tristan's gonna name the year.
Ah, you're quite in the throes of history, aren't you?
Oh, so you're from the future.
Well, I don't see any particular reason to go in on about that, but yes, perhaps a bit into the future. What brings you to the library?
Attempting to stop a demon lord incursion. Potentially one also involved with turning a gigantic brain into an undead monster.
His eyes widen at the mention. What was the name of this brain?
They mentioned it, I just don't remember it as a player.
That's fine. Do you want to tell him the truth?
Yeah.
Okay. His eyes widen even more. I see. I see. And when did you say that this happened?
It would have
Uh,
been within the past year, from our perspective.
The echo turns a little pale at the mention of all of this. I must go. And then he whirls and runs breakneck as fast as he can out of the area. You may have changed the future a bit.
Well, I don't know what to make of that.
I
Reg-
mean,
Yeah, we'll see how that turns out. Regardless, um, you find Viserion's room, and You knock. The gray-skinned creature opens the door. Sorry. And Viserion turns, signals for all of you to come in. Um, what will you tell him, and is there anything you don't want to tell him?
I'm definitely going to mention that we know who framed him.
Okay. Is there any?
But I don't think we should. I mean, do you guys want to keep anything from?
I do want to mention that we did manage to piss off Loth by trying to scry her, so he'd probably appreciate that.
Yeah, probably. Okay. Well, all right, then I will just sort of catch him up on everything that you guys have gone through.
I'm not going to say that I specifically scryed on him. I'll just say that when we were scrying on what's his face, one of the
Gromp.
things we got was him trying to betray him.
Gotcha. Um, when you mentioned Grumpf, he says, "That fool Grumpf brought the demon lords down upon us, with his demon queen pulling his strings all the while. He has given Loth free rein in the abyss. My own research leads me to believe that Grumpf used Fair's Rest to achieve such a summoning, though I am sure he did not intend this result. Imbecile. I can save you months of research, time we clearly do not have. The information I have found here has confirmed my theories, and I know how to banish the demon lords back to the abyss. We can only do this if we work together, if you are willing and daring enough to directly challenge the demon lords, or perhaps foolhardy is a better word. But either way, we'll achieve nothing on our own. What say you?"
We already have a pissed off Drats circling the perimeter. I think we're well past the point of having a choice in this matter.
Yeah.
He pales a little bit. You saw Grast here?
He was in the library. We talked with him. He tried to mind control us, and then the library kicked his ass, and now he's outside.
Oh, that's what that shutter was. Oh, heavens. Um, well, listen, the comprehension magic that occurs in the library can also integrate information about the goings on within its walls. Everything you've said and done here has been recorded. Um, I think for the next step, since Grass knows of the library, just in case he should get in, we should retreat to my sanctuary. The-
I am totally 100% up for that if it involves you getting us there without us.
yes, I believe I can make that happen. Um,
Well, that
please
we've
go. Huh?
we've brought a considerable cohort with us to try to explore the Underdark and also help deal with this. Paladins, thugs,
Yeah, the whole
muggers,
group.
buggerers, etc.
So excellent. We'll need all of them if this is to work. Go gather them up, and I am going to arrange with the librarians to let them know that I intend to cast a teleportation circle that we might all be able to leave here unharmed. But I want to make sure that they know what's up so that nothing goes haywire when I attempt it. Um, and then he nods. You guys go off. You gather up all of your people. You gather up all of your equipment and gear. You gather up some of the actually good food that is stuff that you're used to from the surface, and you pack all of that away, and you set off to find Viserion again. And you actually find yourselves out near the entryway. He's there. He has pulled together a massive chalk circle. Um, One that will be big enough to sort of fit everyone within it. And there are several Galabdur standing around. They all seem to be holding buckets filled with water. All right, everyone, into the circle. We don't have a moment to spare. Grast may actually manage to find a way in yet. Valdaskir was just here, fretting about him prodding at the shroud of the library. Everybody gets into the circle. Um, he chants some magical words. He slams his hands onto the circle, and there is a sudden feeling like gravity has lost hold upon you, and then there's a sudden other feeling of gravity reasserting its hold upon you, and you are suddenly in an entirely different location. And I have a picture. A dark cavern with a great many mushrooms surrounds a massive stone stalagmite in the center. Um, I can skip that. Oh, okay. Right. And since it's pretty much 9 o'clock, that's exactly where we're going to end. We'll pick up here next time and find out what the plan that he has is to destroy the Demon Lords. Thank you for playing, everybody.
Research session complete.
Yay!
Oy.
You get to level up.
That's a good question. I think you'll level up at the end of Viserian's Tower. Wait a minute. Wait. Hold on a second.
Meh?
No, you actually level up at the end of Graven Hollow, so everybody can go ahead and level.
Yes.
Okay.